Meeting the patrons' needs. I wondered how my interests, academic libraries, and libraries with special collections compared. I read an article that studied this. Despite a widespread belief that these services are run differently, the competencies desired in a reference librarian were very similar. With that in mind, I picked a library with a large genealogical collection. During my time at the generic public library, I will further refer to as GPL, I observed and talked about reference services with 3 librarians and 2 staff members. I sat down first with the library director and the public services manager, who I will now refer to as Xavier. When you first walk into the large open space of the main room of the library, you are presented paths to 2 different desks. One is the circulation desk, the other is the reference or the information desk. Xavier admitted the multiple desk arrangements might be confusing. They are reviewing the layout and planning on changing. The reference desk is staffed by 2 people at all times, usually a combination of librarian and support staff, along with reviewing and revamping the layout for the reference desk. GPL is moving forward on its model of how reference librarians interact with users. That seems to be something that is common throughout the industry. The reference desks are being modified and removed, whether this involves a desk, roving reference, or virtual reference services. GPL is right on par with the times. They are incorporating email. They're referring specialized subjects to the librarians that deal with those areas, and they are incorporating a roving reference. I asked about reference style. Xavier said that they lean more conservative. They teach the library user how to use the collections as well as helping them find their resources, but not interpreting the information for the user. I saw this in action when an older woman was having problems with her iPad. She was trying to check out an ebook, then open it in her Kindle app. Xavier told her about the library's ebook app. Xavier walked the patron through the process of checking out and opening the ebook. While Rusa says that formal instruction are not reference services, our text does say that instruction is one type. Since the reference desk gets significantly high amounts of computer and technology assistance queries, Xavier said that often they will offer instructional classes. When it comes to the reference interview, Xavier went through describing to me almost exactly what was laid out in our text, but then when I watched her and the other librarians and staff serving at the reference desk, I never witnessed the rephrasing of the initial question, nor the establishing who the patron was, what they were looking for when they needed it by, where they had already looked, why the question is being asked, and how much information is needed. Because GPL knows their clientele very well, I believe that a lot of inferences were being made about the patrons in addition to the queries that they were making. Xavier seemed to have a do what I say, not what I do method of teaching, but she did say all the non-librarian members who staff the reference desk go through training on how to interview, as well as training on materials and databases. When one patron approached the desk asking about a Superman-themed TV series, and another patron approached about a book title, I saw both the librarian and the staff members turn first to Amazon. When I asked why, they explained it was so they could bring up an image of what they thought the patron was looking for to confirm it. In a roundabout way, they are getting to the heart of what the users want. When it comes to staff development, Xavier said GPL is reviewing their practices and evolving to fit the needs of the patron. They're looking at training opportunities that will be beneficial to the staff in assisting the patrons, reaching out to the community for ideas, evaluating their own individual interactions with the public, and seeking feedback from each other. Xavier said, "We may not know everything, but we can all know a little something." And she went on to explain, when someone at the desk gets asked a question that they don't know an answer to, perhaps about local history or YA reading, a more knowledgeable reference desk member can use that as a teaching moment. Xavier also emphasized that active listening is very important and a vital part in making the user feel great and wanting them to come back, so that is incorporated into the training as well. When I first contacted the library, I mentioned that I was interested in genealogical reference. When I got there, I learned that the need has drastically declined in recent years. Xavier said that's because a lot of that information is online. As an outside observer, I noticed that the genealogy research room is tucked away in a corner of the library. The doors to the entrance are closed to keep out the noise, but it's not very welcoming, and it makes it seem as if the room is closed. They know enough to get people started, but not in depth. I learned that genealogy research is actually growing, and researchers are coming in all age and cultures and backgrounds now. The librarians must have a knowledge of the sources and databases used to find the information, so they Directly behind the reference desk, there's a row of shelves off to the right, which house the juvenile reference collection. And then directly behind the reference desk is the range of adult reference. The greater reference collection, though, is online. When I asked for a budget, Xavier basically just runs down items on the budget. No money is spent on publicity. The library relies heavily on other events to bring people to the reference desk. When I press for information from Xavier, she doesn't provide budget percentages or tell me which is more heavily used, print or electronic. When it comes to development of the reference collection, Xavier said it basically goes back to the learning from each other model. Leaving a good impression, customer service, and teamwork were all part of the interactions I saw between reference staff and patrons. GPL reference staff showed interest in their patrons' queries and attempted to answer those questions as best they could, even though they didn't follow the reference interview guidelines set out by leaders in the information professional world. These are my references.